Okay, step 1, we're going to sew our placement stitch onto the battleizer using the water-soluble thread. For step 2, we are going to add our optional wool. You don't have to add this. You could skip to the next step if you want to, but we really like the look of the dimension it adds. So I have the edges pressed and my wool's prepared, and still with water-soluble thread, it's going to stitch a zigzag to attach it to the battleizer. For step 3, we're going to use the water-soluble thread still, and we're going to stitch the pattern onto the wool. And if you skip the wool, you would then just stitch this pattern onto your battleizer. So make sure your presser foot is in the highest position your machine will allow, or high enough to clear that wool. And if you need to push the wool down ahead of the presser foot to keep it from getting caught, you can go ahead and do that. For step 4, we're going to take our fabric that goes in the center, it's the larger triangle, and we're going to center it over the placement lines. Make sure we're evened up on all sides. Just peel those corners back and make sure you have equal amount of fabric everywhere. And we're going to sew a tack down with the water-soluble thread. I'm just going to gently hold the fabric in place. Alright, for step 5, we're going to start doing our stitch and flip, stitching our seams and flipping our fabric. So we're going to take one of our fabrics. And what I have done is I have my fabric so that I have the darker one on the first go around, and then I have a pink, and I just keep getting lighter as I go out, but you can do that any way you want to. You're going to take this fabric and you're going to put it right side down, raw edges even. And oh, by the way, I did trim these two sides because it was a little bit generous and I wanted to get it closer to 1/4 of an inch. So you're going to place this fabric right side down, raw edges even. I've changed my needle thread to the same thread I'm using for the quilting. And I'm going to stitch my seam. And then I'm going to flip it right side up and finger press it really good, smooth it out, and then we're going to sew a tack down stitch. And then we're going to trim a little bit if we need to. We want to leave approximately 1/2 inch on the outside of the block, so I'm going to trim a little bit on both sides. It can be a little more than 1/4 of an inch. It can even be as little as little as 1/4 of an inch on up to past 1/2 an inch, because we will trim it later. I'm also going to trim here because it looks like it's a little fat right there. And now we're going to go around and we're going to do the same thing. We're going to put the same fabric here and also that same fabric there. So I'll continue around that triangle. Step 7 is the next seam. Right side down, raw edges even. Stitch your seam. Step 8, you're going to flip your fabric right side up finger press, and sew a tack down. Then if necessary, you can do some trimming. I'm going to trim that seam allowance. Step 9 is the same fabric, right side down, raw edges even, and stitch the seam. Step 10, you're going to flip your fabric right side up, and finger press, and stitch the seam. Not the seam, the tack down. Stitch the tack down. Step 11, we're going to take the next piece of fabric. I'm going to use my pink, and I'm going to lay it right side down, raw edges even, and we'll stitch a seam. Step 12, we're going to flip it right side up, finger press smooth out, and sew a tack down stitch. All still using the same regular thread, or you can use the quilting thread if you want to, that you're going to be using in the last step. And now we're going to do some trimming. I'm going to leave this here, but on this side I need the strip of fabric, so I'm going to definitely cut that approximately 1/2 inch away from the block. Now we're just going to work our way around the entire block. We're going to put do a seam and a tack down here, and a seam and a tack down there. So we'll just kind of speed through this until we get done. Step 13. Step 14. Okay, so now it's time for the corners, and I'm going to use my white fabric. So again, we'll just put it right side down, raw edges even, sew a seam, and this is step 17. So then for the next steps, we're going to do the same thing in all 3 corners, and also this time it's not going to stitch a tack down. We're going to do that when we add the backing fabric. But we still need to take our fabric, flip it right side up, finger press, and I know, like I said, there's not going to be a tack down for the corner just yet, but we are going to do our trimming. So this is where the stitching is on the edge of the block, so I'm going to cut approximately 1/2 inch away there. I'm going to leave that side because we're going to end up cutting that in the very end. And now we're going to do our seam for this corner, and this is step 18. I do want to just let you know, remember that you're going to have to flip the fabric before you cut, or you're going to get the wrong angle, and then you're not going to be a happy camper. So flip it, finger press it, and then trim it. And one more seam. This is step 19. Have all our fabric on here. I'm going to flip this and finger press it and trim it off. Now I'm going to add the backing fabric. Alright, so I'm at step 20, and first thing I need to do is I have my hoop turned wrong side up, and I'm going to center my fabric onto the back, peek under all the edges, and just gently, because you don't want to upset anything or push anything out of the hoop. And then I'm going to put it back on the machine right side up, connect the hoop, and I'm going to, with water-soluble thread, sew a stitch to attach it to the back. Okay, the hoop's on the machine, water-soluble thread in the needle, and backing is on properly. I did a little peek underneath to make sure. So now I'm just going to make sure that my corners stay in place. I'm also going to make sure that when I get to this section, I'm going to finger press it a little bit ahead of time. Make sure that that lays flat. Here we are, stitching our backing fabric on. Again, make sure your folds of your fabric stay in place and your corners are properly finger pressed. And that looks good. Okay, the final step is the quilting, and you make sure that you match your needle and bobbin thread with your quilting thread that you've chosen, and we're going to put the machine hoop back on the machine. Also make sure that right now I have to turn off my automatic thread cutter. Make sure you do the same thing, and you're also going to put the needle down and up and bring that bobbin thread to the top. When you're doing the quilting portion, once you have your backing fabric on, if you do those two things, you're going to have a much neater, cleaner looking back. So we'll just watch as it does the quilting. Alright, our Priscilla block is finished, so now we're going to trim it up, and we are going to trim it 1/2 inch through all the layers, 1/2 inch from the basting stitch. So I'm gonna, it's probably hard to see on camera, but I'm gonna lay my ruler right there on the basting stitch at the half an inch mark, and we're going to trim it on all sides like this. Okay, and then one more side. And there is the finished block on the front and on the back.